Momentum. Two passionate and busy moms sharing the quest to achieve entrepreneurial success.
Hi, everybody. Theresa Ofstad
and Ariella Vaccarino.
And we are from
Momentum, a podcast for mompreneur-minded women.
Yes, and I'm so excited about today's guest, our special guest. We're going to be interviewing Remy Meraz, but I wanted to tell you first how I met Remy. Remy and I have been involved with a couple different programs, not only Toastmasters. We had a previous guest on, Gail Lara. We've been part of her programs together. And so we've just been part of this special business networking group. And I love her original story. And then she had to pivot and has an even better story. So I can't wait for you to hear all about it. And today we have with us Remy Meraz. Welcome, Remy.
Hi, Remy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Your energy together is off the chain. It is so infectious.
Thank you. We have a lot of fun together. So
Yes.
it's been a great experience for us. I'm looking forward because I don't know much about you, man. I read a little bit, but I'm going to learn just like everybody in our audience is going to learn about you today.
Sometimes I have guest interviews that I know. Sometimes she has guest interviews that she knows. And it's fun because we do get to learn a lot about each other's, people that we're able to connect with.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for everybody to hear your story. But first, Remy, if you don't mind, I would like to take people back a little bit to when we first met and what you were doing at that point. And then we'll move forward and tell them about the new venture that you're doing currently.
Sure. So when we met, that was back in 2017, I believe. And I was a year into my previous startup, which was called Me Tyme. And I came into that program through an entrepreneur program they had for female founders, diverse female founders. And I was one of those.
Who had that program?
It was the Valley Economic Alliance.
Okay, cool.
And they picked a certain amount of women to get some grants. And I was one of those female entrepreneurs.
So you had to apply for it. You had to do a whole thing.
Right. And so I had Me Tyme going, and I was fresh off of a divorce the year before. I was in a place where I had been completely wiped out by the divorce. And
like financially, emotionally, what do you mean by
everything? All of it. When it's like the legend of the Phoenix, they say the legend of the Phoenix, had to burn down. Right? And my whole life burnt down as I knew it. Yeah. And I was in a really deep place of healing.
And you had kids, right?
My daughter's older. So I have an adult daughter. Okay. I had stepchildren. So that was in itself, a difficult thing about, I raised my stepsons from the time he was 2, to 8, 9, 10, whatever it was when we divorced. But, that was tough. That was really tough. So there was just a lot of healing going on, and not only building a company, but rebuilding my life literally from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I'm the crazy lady that got laid off from my job, but it was because I had discovered my purpose. And I came up with the idea for Me Tyme. And when I got laid off, like the whole company went down. So everybody got laid off. And it was one of those moments. It was a very defining moment because I had ideas previously, like big ideas, one in my 20s, one in my 30s, and here I was in my 40s. And those other ideas that I had come up with went on to be my multi-billion-dollar ideas for other people. And I said, if I ever came up with another idea, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to be on it like a dog on a bone, right? And not quit. And so I decided to go for it. And I just knew if I didn't, I probably wouldn't, and I would have regrets. And so I had to do it. But then I got laid off, and then within a year I got divorced. And so, and when I say I lost everything, I left my marriage with a TV, my car, and my clothes. That's it.
And your daughter was grown at that time?
Grown. So I didn't have that piece to worry about.
Okay.
But, I was building a tech startup. It was very capital intensive. And I was super green and, new to learning everything about building a technology company. And I'm not a technical person, right?
Mhm.
So there was just a lot of learning and going on. And so I'm going to fast forward to the part of the story where we went at it for 5 years, and
This is Me Tyme.
Me Tyme.
Mhm.
And so fast forward to like 2021, and I was applying for some funding, and it required us to talk about the competitors. And one of those competitors who started a year after us, another female founded company out of Silicon Valley,
Mhm.
and they were now at 98 million raised and valued at $1.1 billion.
Mm.
Wow.
And so another $1 billion idea,
Mhm.
right?
Wow.
Mhm.
And so on one hand, it was very defeating, but on another hand, it was very empowering.
Mhm.
And it gave me a real big shot of confidence that my ideas are on point. I am a visionary, and to own that and stand in it no matter what, right? And that I just needed to build a company with and have a different team, because my team, they were really great people, but what I learned was that they were great on paper, but not necessarily in action.
I see.
And one of my big learning lessons was that you have to have team members that operate at the same speed and have the same work ethic and the same drive, tenacity, and commitment as you.
Mhm.
So if you are an A+ personality type, you need to have A+ personality types in the other areas that you need support.
Yeah.
And the other important piece was that you have to get very clear on your strengths and your weaknesses.
Mhm.
And when I say very clear, and own it, and you got to own the weaknesses, you got to own the things you suck at, right? And be okay in saying, I suck at this, I suck at that. And you have to find people that are great at those things.
Fill those gaps for you.
Yeah.
How to fill the gaps so that you
Yeah.
can soar with your strengths, right? And you can be in your authentic self, and you can do what you do best.
But are you
So-
saying you have to fill the gaps with the people that, because obviously with somebody who can do a strength that you're weak at, but what about do they have to have that same personality that you have, that same A type? Or so you're saying no matter what, you think they all need to have that same work ethic or speed that you have. And then you find people, is that what you're trying to say?
Absolutely. And I'll share why, because there's a difference now with my new venture. But back to the story. So that moment, when I saw that and I shared with my team, everybody felt just completely defeated, right? You could see the wind was already going out of everybody's sails anyway.
Yeah.
This was like the killer, right?
Yeah.
And so we had some investors, and they called me up the next day and they said, hey, how are you feeling about everything? And I said, defeated, but a little empowered, right? At the same time. And they said, yeah. And they said, look, we believe in you as a founder. We're excited about you as a founder. We're just not excited about the business model anymore.
Wow.
We think that you need to niche your target audience down, and you need to pivot or kill it and start something new. Either way, we'll back you again.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
The only company founder they've ever done that for in their portfolio. And they said, we'll back you again, but we have 2 contingencies. We're only going to back you, not the rest of the team. They said one more other person, but everybody else no.
Wow.
And the second contingency was that it has to make money. The next venture has to make money from day one. Not be profitable, just generate revenue. And so he said, think about it, get back to us. So it took me like 2 weeks to figure it out. We hung up the phone, and I'm not kidding, but there was a series of magical events
Oh,
that
I love that.
happened over the course of 2 weeks, like goosebump,
Mhm.
moments, like, the universe, spirit, God, whoever you
Yeah.
pray
Mhm.
to, was like listening, and I remember there was one moment where I was like driving down the freeway, and I was like, and I had to get go back to getting a job, and like a real job.
Yeah.
And I was interviewing and negotiating, and I was driving down the freeway, and I was like, what does this mean? Like, do I give everything up? Do I just back burner my idea? And I turn to my left. I'm driving down the 405 freeway in LA. And I look over, and there's a billboard that's black and spray painted across it. It says, never, ever give up.
Oh.
And I literally almost crashed my car. Right?
Oh my God.
Because I like
She
slammed
died.
on the brakes on the 405, right?
Yeah. I love that. And Remy,
so
I just want to share
beautiful.
really quick. So Remy and I have texted each other. We've been, in contact with each other about these little things like that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of the universe is calling you. There's universe is calling me. There's so many. I know she's the first one that taught me what Mercury retrograde even means. And she would share these little, tips with me back and forth. So I love hearing that. And there's been so many more I've seen on your Facebook feed. I've seen a lot of these connections just like that have
Yeah.
happened for you. And the same thing has happened for me. I talk about this divine journey I've been on,
Yeah.
and it's the same type of thing. Just, whatever it is, the universe, God, my mom, whoever it is, sending me a message that I am on the right path. And so Remy and I have been able to share this. So I just wanted to add that little.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, anyways, I figured it out. I figured out what that pivot was, and all it was letting Me Tyme go, but taking the big visionary idea that I have and carving out a slice of the pie, of the visionary
Okay.
pie, and niching it down. And so it was flip-flopping the business in respect to, initially we were a micro learning content platform, and it was the content first, the technology, and then service second, or third, I should say.
Okay.
And so what I did was just reverse it and focus on service first to generate revenue, because that was a contingency,
Yes.
and then build out the technology and the content, which is where we are now. So 7 months later, we launched, and we had paying customers within 2 weeks. And then within 5 months, we had our first enterprise client, which is a big biotech company. And then a month after that, we got some funding from Google.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Now you
And
haven't
I-
said the name of your company yet.
Yeah.
so the name of my company is called Zella Life.
Zella Life.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it's
The new and improved version.
yeah, so it's a tech-enabled coaching platform, and we are bridging the leadership and development gap for diverse talent and middle managers. So that's our focus, and all of our coaches are 100% diverse. And what we do is, help people excel in their professional life and also in their personal life. But what we're doing for companies is helping them develop 2 underserved workforce groups in our country. They're the largest workforce groups, but they're the most underserved when it comes to development, professional development. And middle managers, especially, because they are managing up and managing down. That's where you tend to have the most communication bottlenecks, where you have the most retention issues. And diverse talent, we're helping folks get out of their own way, because as people of color, or it doesn't even matter if it's people of color, it's marginalized groups, right? So you could be neurodiverse, you could be a veteran, you could be a woman, but we tend to have some unique needs when we come into the workplace. And what I mean by that is, say, like with a person of color, you may have some generational trauma, some racial trauma. All these groups suffer from imposter syndrome. And so what we're doing is we're getting to the nitty-gritty stuff that leaders or internal, mentoring or coaching programs won't get to, because they're not going to go there.
I see.
And we give them the development, but we help them with those types of things that help them get out of their own way.
So you supply it to the company and they give it to their employees, they give your service to their employees, or is this something one-on-one that people come to you guys for?
So we help companies where we go in and they hire us to coach their diverse talent or their middle managers. And we one-on-one coaching, and then we also do group trainings as well. And
Okay.
then individuals come to us as well on the B2C side. So if anybody wanted coaching on their own and they're paying for it, we do that too.
And do you do that like a membership where they can go monthly, or is it per course or per, how do they do that?
Yeah, it's not courses, it's one-on-one coaching.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
And
then
what is the difference between like coaching in this instance and therapy? Because some of these subjects you're talking about, they sound pretty like deep-rooted emotional. So what's the difference, or is it the same?
it's not the same. We're not doing therapy. That's for
Okay.
sure. We are coaching. We do have former therapists who are coaches.
Okay,
But we're not necessarily addressing any mental health issues. If someone has mental health issues, we refer them to a therapist.
I
Mm,
see.
yes.
I see. So it's you're really just dealing with these particular issues that deal with the workplace. Is that
Well, in
correct?
their personal life, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
So it's at the end of the day, it all boils down to mindset coaching, right?
Mhm.
So whether it's relationship coaching you need, whether it's professional development coaching, it's really your mindset
mindset.
that you need to adjust. It's emotional and developing more emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
So therapy tends to help you deal and understand things of the past. So
Okay.
let's say it might be, childhood traumas, or if you have any type of mental illness, it needs to be addressed. Where coaching can also help you understand things of the past, but it's going to help you move forward.
Mhm.
I see. Okay.
Right.
Put
And
things
like
into
you said,
action.
all about the mindset and
Yeah.
moving forward. I
Mhm.
love that.
It's about, it's because therapy is going to help you understand and uncover. And depending on the type of therapy you're getting, you could talk things out for years,
Right.
Mhm.
right? Where coaching is going to help you do that, but be a little bit more proactive in helping you move forward.
Okay,
Right.
I get that.
Awesome. And you did kind of touch base a little bit on the type of diversity that you focus on. And like you said, it's not just cultural diversities, but women, veterans, any kind of
Marginalized group,
marginalized groups. Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And if you wouldn't mind, I know, so we also know each other from Toastmasters, and we recently had her as one of our guests, and I loved your presentation. You talked about several tips. You also talked about what the word fail means. And I think your story really represents that. But can you share with us what the word fail means?
Ooh.
Yeah, FAIL, there's an acronym for it. It's first attempt in learning.
Ooh.
Yeah.
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 I'm writing it down.
Yeah, that really resonated with me. And one thing I actually learned through the Google family, one of the Google executives, they said that founders of color will fail 2 to 3 times
Wow.
with their business first, because the resources are different, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to things like funding, and that's why they had this funding program that we were able to receive. But failing, it's reframing it to look at it as an experiment or a study.
Mhm.
So when you're having any type of difficult challenges, it's just think of it like, oh, I'm doing a study right now, or I'm in a study of,
Mhm.
right? And it's an opportunity to learn. I will say that I get I'm a little torn about saying this, but the one thing you want to do is fail fast. And I don't know that I wish I would have failed faster with Me Tyme in some regard.
Because it was 5 years, right?
5 years, that's a long time.
A long time. It's a
Yeah.
long, slow fail.
Yeah, but here's why I didn't quit earlier, was because when I would tell people that I was having challenges or I was struggling, people would go, "Oh, you can't quit, you can't quit."
Right.
Oh, that's just how it is, and you can't quit, and you can't quit. And so I'd get these pep talks, right? And it was finally Marco that had the hard conversation with me and just said, this isn't working anymore. And none of my other advisors had said that,
Yeah.
right? And so I really appreciate and respect Marco for having that hard conversation with me. Just like, look, this isn't working anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
The 5 years paid off because they offered to back you for your next thing. If you would have quit after a year, they may never have offered that for you. I mean, you proved.
I didn't, right. And I didn't meet them until that last year.
Okay.
So
So
in that
had you stopped back
right.
then, you might not have ever met them.
Exactly. And, and we don't want to do the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right?
Yes.
I wouldn't have, right, you're right. I wouldn't have met them and we
Right.
wouldn't be here today. Right. So, but it was painful. It was very challenging financially, extremely challenging financially. I'm talking like living so on the edge of poverty, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I was in poverty. Let me just be real. I was in poverty. And that was a lot.
Yeah. But then share with us how you learned about Google. I love that story
We
too.
want to hear all about that.
The Google funding that you received. Share with us that journey.
So one of the things that I learned at a very young age, when I was going through like a job interview process, and it was actually my girlfriend said it to me, and it's very valuable advice, especially for those who suffer from imposter syndrome, or you may have grown up in a family where you're taught not to talk about yourself because that's considered bragging.
Right. Right. That's hard.
Right. And I'm talking, I was like 18, but that a girlfriend said this to me. And I said, I have a hard time talking about myself in job interviews because it feels like I'm bragging. And she said, girl, that's the one time you do get to brag about yourself. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. So that it's okay to talk about your accomplishments. It's okay to share. And I am a natural born marketer. My career has always been business development, sales, some marketing positions, but mostly sales and business development. So I will share if I'm really passionate about something, really excited about something, and that's how I can sell well, right?
Yeah.
Not the traditional salesperson. And we started with a landing page for Zella, and then we graduated pretty quickly, actually, like within a month and a half, to a website.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry, it was a little bit, it was several more months than that because it was like around March, I guess. And we had launched in October. And so I was so excited. We like had a website, like a real website. And so I screenshotted it and I shared on my Instagram stories and Facebook stories. And a Facebook friend who is a founder as well out of Atlanta saw my story that day.
Yeah.
But wait, first share what you posted, because that resonated with me. When you talk about trying to, like you just said, we don't like to share information about ourselves. We don't like to brag about ourselves. But what I loved,
bother people.
What I loved is the post that you mentioned talked about what you needed. And that's the thing that we sometimes forget to do.
Yeah.
Share with people.
Right.
What,
so that
what
one
will help
you're
you.
saying the story before that, right? Okay.
Yes.
So when we launched, we actually launched it. I posted on Facebook and I was just very vulnerable. I shared that Me Tyme went down, right? And it failed. But out of that failure came it birthed Zella Life. And I talked about Zella Life and what we were up to. And I said, and here's how you can help.
Yeah.
And I listed 5 things that people could do.
Yeah.
That led us to our first client, which
what were the 5 things? Do you remember?
I said that we were looking for introductions to these type of decision makers.
That's great.
Right. I said you could follow us on our social media and share, with friends. I don't remember the other things, but there were 5. And I said it was like PR opportunities, podcast, article, media, PR. I don't remember the other things.
So
But
you asked for what you
oh,
needed.
it was
Yeah.
for hello. If people wanted coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
If anybody
Yeah,
needs our
individ-
services.
Yeah, individual. If anybody individually wanted coaching,
Mhm.
here you go. We give complimentary coaching sessions, right?
Mhm.
So out of that post came the first enterprise client. And it
Mhm.
was a Facebook friend who used to be a former colleague 20 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago. And we don't even talk. Like, she just saw it and she said, I want to help. And I'm on the diversity committee at my
Mhm.
company. I can get you a meeting with the head of diversity.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Really
Yes.
just networking.
But just
networking.
like you said, asking for what you need. And
Yeah.
I think
You
sometimes we
gotta
don't
just-
do that.
Yeah.
And even with our podcast, we're trying to like bring more awareness, but it sometimes you get in this mode of, share and like, or listen. But what else can they do to help you? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that want to help, but if you don't tell them what you need, then they may not realize they have those resources to help you. So
Right. And it just really requires you to step into vulnerability. And when you feel that fear or that anxiety or the push of, no, I can't. And we all know what it feels like, right? You
Mhm.
know, in your body where you feel that it is in
Right.
your
Mhm.
gut, it's welling up in your chest, right? And you're like, I can't. And all I can say is push through. You just
Mhm.
have to push through. Right. And if it's one thing, just do one thing, not even 10 things, just do one thing. Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's really just the willingness to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
And so that led us to the first client. Then we had a landing page, right?
Yeah.
And then we had a
Yeah, it's
website.
amazing.
And I posted that and he reached out and he said, Remy, he goes, I just saw your website and I went through it. This is amazing. This is so needed. He said, Google, have you heard about the Google Black Founders Fund? And I said, I have not. And he said, well, I'm in it and they're launching a Google Latinos Founders Fund.
Mm.
And you have to be nominated in. I want to nominate you. And it's for $100,000.
Yeah, I know.
Cash,
I have goosebumps.
cash award, non-diluted funding. That's the best
Yeah.
part, non-diluted. They have no equity in my company. And so he said, here's the catch. It was Friday afternoon. He said the application is due Monday. I was getting ready to leave town for the weekend and had a jam-packed weekend out of town. And anyways, I cut my Sunday afternoon short. I worked on it all afternoon, night, and Monday up until the deadline. I didn't even tell my team, my co-founders, I just did it. I asked them a couple of questions where I needed some answers, just asked them, and I submitted it. And it was really funny though, because they had actually been telling me not to focus on funding or, talking to investors or anything. Remy, just stay focused on generating revenue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
these were your investors, right? These were the people that invested in
one
you?
of them, yeah, Marco
Right.
was like, don't worry
Right.
about any, like talking to any, investors, don't worry about funding, like just stay focused on revenue.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I'll ask for forgiveness later, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we got selected. And we got
Wow.
selected. They picked 50 Latino founders from across the country
Oh my
that
gosh.
are working on important things working on things that are going to solve important issues.
And when
So-
was this? Sorry, when was this?
Last June.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was just gonna ask,
congratulations.
what was that process? Was it just filling applications? Was there actually a program involved? Did they help
Oh,
with
yeah.
anything? Or like what did that look like?
The application process was the easiest application process I've ever, well, I should say it's the easiest thing I've had to do in respect to, it was an application and that's it. The application was a little extensive, but I got it done. But there was no pitching, there was no interviews and nothing like that. It was strictly based on the application. You had to have traction. We did have some traction.
Yeah.
And then it's a year-long program. And so they provide so many resources. It's really amazing. And the
What
network,
kind of resources?
connections, like you have a VC advisor that helps you figure out your funding strategy or, what you should do. You have Sales Academy, you have access to all of the other founders. There's courses, there's webinars, there's introductions. You have a Google Success Manager. The program part has ended with 6 months, and then you get another 6 months of services. Oh, another thing they offered was therapy. All the founders got therapy sessions you needed. So ton of resources. And then through our participation in that program, because we were so active in the program, we got selected to participate in Google Growth Academy, which was recently.
What is that?
So essentially, again, it's 10 founders that they picked, but it's a program on how to help you grow and scale your business. And it's really, it's like you're getting an MBA, for free, essentially, right? And you can apply it like in real time to your business.
Wow.
So it's amazing. And, for someone who didn't go to business school, it's awesome.
But that's the thing. And that's why I was so excited to have you on today, Remy, because you really have been through so much that people can learn from. There are so many resources out there. We just need to tap into them. And when opportunities come about, if you take those opportunities, you never know what other opportunity is going to come from that. And so it's just super exciting. Of course, I follow you on Facebook. We're friends. And so I followed your journey, and it's just so awesome. Everything that you've gone through. And again, those resources, ladies, gentlemen, whoever's out there listening, there's so many resources you can tap into.
And how do you even find, even starting with what you did with the Valley Economic Alliance and applying for grants, and even knowing that you could do something like that, because we have our podcast and we're trying to grow it, and
we have our separate businesses.
we have
a
our own
lot
companies
of things that we're doing. A lot of things.
It's just like, so many people would never even think to go to these places and try and get a grant. How did you know to do something like that?
I heard, but here's the thing. I talk about my business to everybody. You just have to talk about it. If that's what you want to do, right? If you're thinking about leaving a company, your job, and you want to start your own business, if you want to grow your business, if you want your business to be successful, you have to be the number one salesperson. You may not think you're a salesperson, but you have to be one, right? And it's super simple if you just take it from the perspective of, this is my why. This is the thing I love. This is the thing I'm most passionate about. This is the thing that I want to support and sustain my way of life. I'm doing this because I want to help 1 million people. For me, I'm living a very purpose-driven life. So for me, it is that I found my purpose. I feel like this is my calling. This is what I was born to do. And I want to impact millions of lives and millions of companies and create that change within an organization, right? And so for me, that's where it's coming from. So I'm going to tell everybody about it. And it's just because it's what I love, right? And so not that you're trying to sell somebody on anything, it's just sharing. Just think of it as sharing, not selling. All right.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. And you'll be surprised, how many people are willing to help, or they'll say, oh, I know somebody who can.
Right. Refer you to somebody else. Exactly.
People have these connections. If you don't tap them, that you won't get them. It's like, and it's so easy sometimes when people say, let me make a call, or let me tell my friend.
Right. Exactly. That's all it is. So you have to, again, it requires you to be vulnerable, and just, if you can reframe things, just a tweak, right? Instead of going selling, if you go, oh my God, that gives people anxiety.
Right.
You say, I'm sharing about the thing I love. That's different. It feels different in your body, right?
And you said earlier that even wrote it down, Legend of the Phoenix, everything had to burn down for you to heal. You did that when you went through your divorce, but you did it again, having to go through a switch of your career and your focus, and so you just seem to be this person who, like you said, you're a visionary. You've got all of these things to move forward with, and mindset, and everything that you have mentioned and that you share with the world is so much needed. And so just even sharing your story with our audience and our listeners, fail forward, and just
Fail
move
forward.
on. And things happen to, everybody in the world differently. But it's all about how you recover from that and how you move forward.
What
So
you do with that.
100%. We all get a choice.
mhm.
We all have the power of choice, right? And I could have failed and went and crawled in a corner, right?
Yeah.
Lick my wounds. I did do some licking of the wounds for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell
I'm
you,
sure there was a day or two of some ice cream or a
Yeah.
little bit of crying involved. We all have to even just, it's part of the process. You have
Absolutely.
to, anytime you go through a major life change like that, there's part of a grieving process you go through, it's not just death and dying is the only way that you grieve. You grieve the loss of things that used to be in your life, and you now have this different life.
Yeah, exactly. And the important part is, what you're telling yourself throughout the process, right? How you talk to yourself is really key. And for me, I'm very clear, like, because this is so purpose driven, like this is it. This is my end plan, my game plan, right? There is no going back.
Right, and it's for the greater good. It's so much easier also just to share something like this, because who doesn't want to hear about it? Because it's for the greater good. You're doing a great deal, a great good deed.
Yeah, and here's the thing, as now we're a year and a half in, and we've had some amazing results. And so that traction that we're getting is just more fuel for the fire. Right. And so I don't know if you saw my post yesterday, but I shared that, we got together with some of our local coaches and celebrated them in person because of the great work they're doing. 42% of the diverse talent we coached last year increased their performance, which led to promotions and pay increases.
Wow. So, wow.
It's working. The work is working, right? What we set out to do, it's happening. 100% of the people that we're coaching, whether it's diverse or not, leaders or talent, they report increased confidence with difficult conversations, which is big, right? And then
that can just completely stop somebody in their track. And if you have the lack of confidence and there's a difficult conversation to have, some people just avoid it completely.
100%. And let me give you an example. We have someone that we coached who had a situation with the boss's boss. It was at an offsite retreat thing. The boss's boss said something a little inappropriate and out of touch culturally. And the people of color at the event were offended by it, felt a kind of way about it. But one in particular, she wanted to quit as a result of this. But I would say it's not just the result of that incident. It's the result of many incidents throughout her career that she's experienced: microaggressions, racism, colorism, whatever, sexism, that she didn't address. And we let it go, but instead internalized it. And every time you're internalizing, right? So then you get this one situation, and it's like this straw that breaks the camel's back, and like, I'm quitting, I'm out, I'm done. Had to schedule an emergency coaching session. The coach coached her through it, talked her off the ledge. But here's the differentiator. She was going to let it go because she felt better. The coach empowered her to go address it with her boss in a healthy way. That was empowering for her. So it's building a new muscle of, instead of letting it go, addressing it, having difficult conversations from an empowered place.
Yeah.
That's a game changer for people.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
right? Because look how it can help you in so many other situations. With your spouse, with a family member where there's challenges, right?
Mhm.
So that happened. And then there's people that have come to us and that we're coaching. They're like, yeah, I plan on quitting in a year. And 100% of those people who were planning on quitting are no longer quitting.
Oh, so it's really, they're enjoying their work.
So now they have a career plan that they're working on within their organization. So we're saving companies right now. Currently, the average is about $20,000 per company in new hire costs.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So that for me is more fuel, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, it's working. It's working. Now, how can we scale this? How can we 20x it? How can we 100x it? Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's that it's exciting. And so that's the energy you have to take and use on the days that you're having not so great days, the days when the weeks when things may not be going, right.
Right.
Remy, I see you're also, I looked at your Instagram. You're an athlete,
Mhm.
right?
She's a marathon
Like
runner.
marathon runner, right?
Like marathon runner.
You have a
Yeah,
career so
wait,
bad.
hold on. You're exaggerating that a little bit because I've been a runner my whole life. I was a sprinter in high school that morphed into a distance runner in my adult life.
Okay.
And so I was running half marathons, 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. In my 50s, I decided to do a full marathon,
Right.
which was last year. I did 2 full marathons. I have one more in me, and then I'm going to retire from marathons, full marathons.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So here's the thing, as being an athlete, so I've always been coachable, right? Coaching was transformational in my life. Therapy was transformational in my life. I'll talk about that in a second. But here's the thing about playing sports or being active. There's a mindset that comes with it.
Yes.
So with training for races, it requires discipline, it requires focus, it requires tenacity. So it's taking all of those same mindset, skills and applying it to the business. So it helps me as a CEO, as a
Of
leader,
course.
right? And so it's all intertwined. And what I was going to say about the coaching piece and the therapy piece, part of Zella's, the why in Zella is because I had the same experiences that we're coaching people around. I had those too.
Mhm.
And interesting enough, my co-founder, Julian, who, by the way, is 10 years younger than me, we both lived in San Diego, never knew each other. We met a few years ago, and I'm here in LA and he's down there, but we met through Clubhouse.
Oh.
Turns out we had the same career experience
Mhm.
where he as a Black male engineer and me as a biracial woman. We were often the only one at the table or in the room in many work situations, right? And a couple things comes out of that. We didn't have leaders that looked like us, and we didn't have psychological safety to talk about the things that we were experiencing. And there was microaggressions, there was sexism, there's toxic masculinity stuff happening. And we both individually invested in coaching and therapy on our own. And so we got the tools and we got the mindset shifts. However, we learned that we had our own blind spots going on. And I also learned I had imposter syndrome. I had racial trauma. I had generational trauma, right? So all these things that we were bringing into the workplace, and we were in our own way. And so it was getting enlightened to that really shifted us. And then our careers took off individually. And that's why we're so passionate about coaching. And the other piece of it is that coaching, there's a lot of people know, therapy is just starting to get normalized.
Yes.
There's still some stigma around coaching that people don't know what it is. They think it's only for executives. They think it's only for white people. They think it's only for rich people. And that's not true. And so we want to democratize it and make it available to everybody. And that's why having diverse coaches is so key and important.
Yeah.
in what
And
we're
I
doing.
think it's great that, because we've had another mom that we had interviewed that really focuses more on the workplace, whereas
Anna.
you guys
Mhm.
or Zella also focuses on the individual. And sometimes, like you say, the coaching needs to happen within and
It's
to be able
100%
to,
one.
yeah. And
It's all an inside job.
not just with the business, but also individually. And
Yeah.
I think that's so important. And I think that's really your differentiator between some of the other,
Yeah.
people that talk about diversity in the workplace,
Mhm.
but also
Yeah.
focusing
Right.
on coaching within.
Yeah, it's all an inside job at the end of
Mhm.
the day, right?
Mhm.
But what people don't also realize is that it's all intertwined, your personal life, your work life. Like how you show up in one way is how you show up in all ways,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? So I guarantee that if you're having some communication challenges with your significant other, I bet you're having some significant challenges in the workplace too.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
for anybody.
Anybody.
No matter what
Yeah.
your culture. I mean, everybody comes with so much baggage, and then you have to put something else on top of it, dealing with issues, racial issues, and then just to be able to get that extra support. Is
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really, you're right. It's really like a taboo thing. I mean, if nobody looks like you and you're having a problem, I mean, it could happen to women, right? Of
Mhm.
course. And if all your bosses are men, well, if you're a Latino or something and nobody looks like you, who do you go to? I know because I'm Jewish. So I'll have my own little thing. So somebody makes a little jab about Jews and
Yeah.
nobody thinks it's a big deal, but I think it's a big deal, right? So when something's good and something's not. Maybe only another Jewish person would know, or
Yeah.
only another Black person would know. So
Right.
to get that support, I think is so important.
Mhm.
It's so next level,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
really just.
It just gives you the psychological safety
Mhm.
to be able to talk freely and openly and not worry that you're going to lose your job, or that's going to be used against you.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's the key, is having that psychological safety piece.
Mhm.
And so so let's tie it back to the working out, or exercise.
Mhm.
If someone wants to lose weight or get in shape, they think nothing of hiring a trainer to do that.
Right.
Mhm.
But
Right.
what about your mindset?
Yeah.
What about your mind? If you
Mhm.
need to get that in shape, and we all do,
Mhm.
we all do, like, why wouldn't you hire a coach for that?
Mhm.
It's the same thing.
So
Yeah.
how often would you guys meet with a particular employee? I mean, how long does it each little relationship
Individual.
last?
It just all depends on what they're willing, what they want to pay for and what the person's needs are. So on average, it's twice a month.
Mhm.
We also have what we call our constant contact. So individuals have access to their coach via text or voice in between the coaching sessions
That's great.
as well, which is awesome, because if you were having a situation, next week and your appointment's not for 2 more weeks, right?
Yeah.
You could get some coaching in the moment on demand
Yeah.
and in real time, right? Versus having to wait. And a lot of times, like, those feelings had dissipated and you're like, oh, never mind. Again, the letting things go, and we internalize. So that's really awesome. And it also gives people a chance to practice the learnings
Mhm.
and really reinforce the behavior change that's being created.
Are you educating the people around them as well? Like the office or their boss, like when they're doing something, or are you just empowering them to go and handle it?
No, so there's a couple of things that happen. We have survey feedback loops, so that go to the coaches and the individual after each session, but we're a bespoke approach, which means that we tailor it to the company and individual's needs. And so we make sure that they're being coached each session against those desired outcomes that each have.
Mhm.
And then we deliver through our data analytics, and this is where the tech part comes in,
Yeah.
is that we mine the data for pervasive conversation themes that are showing up. So we do some reporting back to the company, but there's no identifying information on anybody, but it's pervasive conversation themes that can help the company be more effective with the development of the team or the individual. So an example, one company we were coaching, a pervasive conversation theme that was constantly coming up amongst everyone was that the organization, in the way that their metrics are structured, favors salespeople or roles that are tied to revenue generation, but not support roles.
Mm,
That leaders tend to recognize the squeaky wheels,
mhm.
Yeah.
just the people that are being the loudest.
Mhm.
And that was constant, right?
Mhm.
So we took that information back. They asked us to do a training for the leaders
Mhm.
on the difference between self-advocacy and squeaky wheel syndrome.
Mhm.
And it was interesting. Half the leaders didn't even know all the components to self-advocacy,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
then we educated them on how your diverse talent may not be able to meet all of these points in the self-advocacy wheel, right, or chart, because culturally they're, taught this, right, or that. And so they're going to have a hard time, like, talking about themselves. They're
Yes.
going to have a hard time going up and asking you to have coffee, right? And
right.
have a one-on-one with you. So you may have to initiate in some of these things. Like, so it's about increasing their self-awareness. So now we're coaching the individuals on how to self-advocate properly and helping them get past any barriers that are keeping them from doing it. And then we educated the leaders. So now everybody's operating from the same page.
Ooh,
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you, Remy. You've done such an amazing job,
Thank you.
building this, company that is such a support for people, and it's so needed. So thank you for that.
Yeah, totally.
I wanted to just get back to obviously momentum. It's all about being a mom. And I
Yes.
know that you talked about having an adult child. And I know that I'm sure she's proud of you as well. And is there anything you want to share about being a mom with this whole role? And is there anything that you can incorporate there?
Yeah, so I will tell you, so I was a single mom growing up, and it was challenging in respect to, everybody knows the mom guilt, right? Or parent guilt. And so for me, I had opportunities. I was like working my way up the career ladder, but I was afraid to take certain opportunities because it would mean more time away, right? For my daughter, more responsibility. And so when she went off to college, or right before she went off to college, I had like it's like the universe, or started tapping on me, right?
Yes.
Like, because my big breakthrough was when I realized, wait, you've been using your single mom excuse in a lot of different ways, right?
Yeah.
And in your career too. And I said, who would I be without that story?
Mm,
Well, that's powerful.
yeah.
And she's going off to college, and you can't use that excuse anymore. And I realized I used it as an excuse a lot. So it was when I asked that question of myself, that's when the universe started, like the wheels started turning, like in a Jumanji movie or a Harrison Ford movie, right? Like,
But
and
maybe
all
you didn't use it as an excuse, because there was a particular reality to being a single
there
mom.
was.
And and times were changing because she was going away, and then the universe opened because it was your time, because you could.
Sure.
Point.
But I will tell you, I can look you in the eye and tell you there were times that I used it.
Okay.
I know for a fact, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Self-reflection.
yeah, being honest with myself. But that sent me on my self-discovery journey and doing like really deep work and understanding and who I was and without that title and connecting to like my authentic self. I will tell you that one of the mistakes I made when she went off to college, and that a lot of people do, this is very common, is that when people think when their kids turn 18, like, oh, I'm done, right? Like,
All
oh,
right,
yeah, it's about me, it's all empty nesting and da-da-da.
Right.
And you're not done. Your kids need you in a different way when they're adults. And it just looks different. And so you have to figure out what that is. She didn't voice that to me though, right? Until like a few years ago. And she's in her early 30s now. And so, and it was after my divorce. And I'm trying to get this company off the ground. And I was like, in some deep, dark places during that time. And one day she had a conversation with me, and, she just started crying. And she said, I know that you've been going through an extremely tough time. And she goes, but there's some days that I just need my mom.
Yeah.
I still need my mom.
Of
Right.
course.
Yeah. And it looks different, right? And, checking on them or having, conversations. And even though like, I would text her or call her and she's not a phone person, she wouldn't pick up.
Mhm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, but I did reach out, but it's
Yeah.
understanding what their communication needs are, style is, and adjusting. We have a phenomenal relationship. And I would say as she's gotten older, her empathy has increased too, because she has friends now that are getting married and having kids
Mhm.
and trying to juggle everything.
Yes.
And so she came to me recently and said, I am so sorry for every time I ever judged you. And now that I see what it's like on the other side, with my friends going through it, but also for her, because she's doing pretty well in her career and she's a community leader as well. So she's got a pretty full plate
Mhm.
that she's trying to figure out this whole work-life balancing. And she's like, how the hell did my mom do it? Like in looking at her age, right? At the time she was 30 when she said this.
Mhm.
And she's like, wait, and she had a 10-year-old,
Yeah.
like, oh shit, this is crazy. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and so yeah, our relationship is really great. And yes, she is proud. And and I'm proud of her too. But I love that she invests in her own growth and personal development.
Mhm.
And for a while I used to try to like push her to go. I mean, she went to therapy on her own, but like, oh, do this workshop, do this training, because I love to do workshops and
Yeah.
trainings. But she loves books
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and she loves workbooks, and she'll do the work on her own. That's her way of doing it. So
Mhm.
it's just getting to know your kids as adults,
Mhm.
and like you would in any other relationship, right? Like
Yeah.
with a romantic relationship or a friendship, you have to do the same with your kids as adults.
I love that you have your daughter is grown up and out, and you could just kind of settle into a job right now and just kind of sail through, but you still have a fire in your belly. Now you're in your 50s. I mean, I'm in my 50s, so I love that about you. And you are inventing and creating, and you're visioning, and you're going for it. And it just goes some moms, they have to stop for a while and raise their kids, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean they can't come out and
Yep.
become in the Google Growth Academy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's wild. And by
It
the way,
is.
I'm going to be 54 on Saturday, this coming
Aw,
Saturday.
awesome.
And
Well,
so,
happy pre-birthday.
I mean, energetically, I feel like I'm in my 30s, but it's only when sometimes I like stop and think about it because somebody else says something where they'll
Yeah.
go kind of something similar. We're like,
Yeah.
I could never do that at this age.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like they're just looking to cruise. I'm like retirement. And I'm like, I have too many ideas. Like there's no way.
That's how I
right?
feel. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm just waking up now. My kids are
I'm so awake. Mhm.
yeah. My kids, my youngest is almost 10, my oldest is 17. They're still in the house, but I was an opera singer and had a company
Oh.
called Voice Lessons to Go. And I did all this stuff, but it was kind of all on the down low for the last, I don't know, 15 years raising all these kids. And now I just, but there is still guilt, because even right now I have a daughter who's home who doesn't feel good today, but she's fine. I'm like, you're gonna be fine. I'm doing a podcast. So you start to make these choices, and then they do feel the effects of it.
Yeah.
But they are proud of me.
Yes.
And you have to find the balance, but it's
Yes.
never perfect. I mean, today in her perfect world, I'd probably be cooking for her and like doting on her, but I'm like, you're
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
You're old enough. You can do it.
Yeah.
I
But
remember.
thank you. I was just going to say, thank you for sharing that too, Remy, because, I think that all through the phases of our children's life and motherhood for us, there are different phases. And for me, even from infancy, you know, like you get so excited about having this child and like what's to come, what to learn, what do you still need to figure out? And then all of a sudden there's a next phase and the next phase and the next phase. So my son is almost, no, he is 17, he's almost 18. So thank you for sharing what it's like with an adult child, because you know there's a little bit of that fear of, oh my gosh, they're going to turn 18, they're going to be out of the house soon, and I'm not going to see them anymore. But so it's refreshing to see your side of that story, because you're always going to be a mom, you know.
I'll always be a mom.
And I shared, you know, on our Mother's Day episode, I shared about my mom, and, you know, as an adult, she, like you said, some days you just need your mom. You need to be there to be able to, you know, get through something you're getting through, or even just feel the love, whatever it is. But at some point, you know, they're always part of your life. So
I remember a day when post-divorce, like no money, right? And I had to move something, and I didn't have any money to get a truck, right? Rental truck. And she's like, I'll get it for you. And I was like, you can't do that. And she goes, can I just take care of you for once?
oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. And so there's some moments for me, I might cry, you know, where like you have to let the ego go, and you have to just, like, when you're in those deep, dark times, and, you know, help from your kids may have to come in, you know, like, you don't ever want to put them in that position. And then, you know, or you think it's going to be when you're 80, right?
Of course.
And here I was 40 something, and, you know, and she's helping me pay for a freaking moving truck to move something, right? A piece of furniture.
But she believed in you, and look at you
Yeah,
now.
she believed in me. And, you know, when she was applying to something, and she had to do an essay, and she asked me to proof it. And in that essay, she said that she was one of the lucky ones to be born to a single mom. Because of that, she learned her strong work ethic. And all these other things, right? And how I would take her to work with me, and I worked for a marketing agency. And that marketing agency, Nike was our client, and we had to do these activations. And she got her first job out of it, like managing, you know, she was in high school, and she was like help manage the program. And she talked about that, but it wouldn't have happened had it not been because I was a single mom and I had to bring her to work with me.
So we have the same thing that you have, where you look at something and this thing about failing, first attempt in learning, and you turned it into the next thing. And that's what she did. Even this, she could sit there and be like, I can't believe I had a single mom. She was out of work or something, but instead she's thankful.
Yeah, she's grateful for it. And, you know, so tying back to like that parental guilt piece, right? I have so much parental guilt around things, but there's these moments that have shown up as an adult where, you know, what you were thinking, they were thinking a little bit different. And don't get me wrong, she says some other things, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
However, but there's these, you know, these really nice, genuine moments. One thing I will say, for all the moms out there who maybe have one kid, or even if you have women who don't have any kids listening, right? One of the things that I was very clear, I didn't want to have any more children. And one of the things I used to get a lot was, are you going to have another one? And if I said no, they would say, that's so selfish of you. Not to give them a brother, not to give her a brother or sister. And my stepmom, who's no longer with us, God bless her, she's amazing. She said to me, and she had never had any kids. We were her daughters. And she said, never, ever let anybody shame you for your choices. And she said, it's your life, it's your body, and you can do whatever you want with it. And I think that we get, so as women, we get caught up in what society says
Judgy.
we should do, and all that judgment. And she said, you're clear on what you want. Like, you stand in that and you own it, you know? And I see so many women, you know, especially young women, like, you know, there's this thing of shaming women for not being married or not having kids or whatever, you know, or you're
I'll shame you for having too many kids. Like
you're only whole if, right?
Everybody has their own thing.
Yeah, everybody has their own thing. And it's like, like being a mom was really great. You know, it's like one of the most fulfilling things I've done. But I also think that women can get fulfillment too
Yes.
in other ways as well.
Yeah.
No, that's what we're talking about here. That's what
Yeah.
momentum is about. We're trying
Yeah.
to fuel that other part, give confidence, and celebrate that other part of moms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Remy. I am just so inspired by you. I'm so proud of you.
It's so
Thank
cool. I'm going to
you for
follow
always
you and see
keeping me.
everything you do.
Yes, it's awesome. And thank you so much for being on our show. It's very, like I said, very inspiring and very personal and special for me. So thank you so much for being here today.
It was great meeting you, Remy. Good luck with everything you're doing. It sounds like you're doing wonderful things for the world.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And kudos to you guys for having this platform to share stories to help other women.
Thank you so much. And for all of you listening out here,
Follow
follow your
your
dreams.
Bye-bye, mamas.
Bye.
Momentum. Two passionate and busy moms sharing their quest to achieve entrepreneurial success.